We are continuing to study daily abundance, and we are experiencing daily abundance. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you've seen the manifestation of prosperity in your life. If you have been experiencing daily abundance, give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if that has been your experience as we have been going through this teaching. We are in the day-by-day phase. We're on day 17, and we're on page number 26, and it says birthright means double portion. All right, and our scripture for today is Deuteronomy 21:17, giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength, and the right of the firstborn is his. And our affirmation is, I receive a double portion of all that is good. Can you affirm for me? I receive a double portion of all that is good. Affirm it again. I receive a double portion of all that is good. That is our affirmation for today. So birthright means double portion. If you look at it from a biblical perspective, the idea of birthright means that whoever was the oldest, it was based on age, it was based on gender, it was based on favorites, that whoever was the oldest, they got a double portion of the inheritance. So say that a man had 3 children. The inheritance would be broken into fourths, and one child would get a half or 2/4, and each of the others would get 1/4. He would get a double portion of whatever the family had, because he was going to be the one that was leading the family. Normally, the double portion went to the oldest child. As we can see in our reading today, that the order was switched, the order was reversed, that the elders served the younger, that Esau did not get the birthright, but Jacob did. So God changed and broke the order of how birthright normally happened. Also, Jacob was not Isaac's favorite. Esau was closer to his father, but that did not stop Jacob from receiving the birthright. And let me tell you, when God has something for you, nobody can stop you from receiving what God has for you but you. Can I say that again? When God has something for you, nobody can stop you from receiving it but you. Your age can't stop you, your gender, because if the oldest child was a girl, then the birthright went to the next oldest male. It was about age, it was about gender, it was about favorites. All of these things factored into the birthright, and the birthright literally meant the double portion. So historically in the Bible, that's what birthright meant. It meant double portion. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you understand that historical understanding of what birthright meant. From a biblical perspective, it meant the double portion. You got double because you received the birthright. All right. Now, what the Lord was sharing with me this morning is found in Isaiah chapter 61. I know I don't normally do 2 scriptures, but I'm going to do 2 today. Isaiah chapter 61 and verse number 7. And today I'm going to be talking about the trade. That in order to experience the birthright, the double portion, there must be a trade. There must be an exchange. So today we're talking about the trade. Normally when people, let me say, in my experience, when people talk about trade, they're talking about people exchanging sex for drugs or sex for money. That's what they mean when they normally say the trade, like a quote-unquote straight male would have sex with a gay male for money or for drugs. It was considered a trade. It's an exchange, like when you have prostitution, where the woman is exchanging her body for the money that the man is providing. It's considered trade in the world. When they talk about trade, they often talk about an exchange of sex and drugs for money. But the trade that we're talking about today is not the exchange of sex and drugs for money. It's not the New York Stock Exchange, the trade market of what's happening in the stock exchange. We're talking about receiving the double portion. In order to receive it, as you will see in this text today, there must be a trade. There must be an exchange. There must be a letting go of one thing in order to receive something else. And the scripture in Isaiah 61 and 7 says, instead of shame, you will receive a double portion. And instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. And so you will inherit double portion in your land and everlasting joy will be yours. That's Isaiah 61 and verse number 7. Now, I am familiar with the text where it says, I will give you the oil of joy, beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. And I love that song. I'm trading my sorrows. I'm trading my pain. I'm trading my shame for the joy of the Lord, that I'm letting go of my sickness. How many know that song? That I'm trading my sorrows, I'm trading my shame, I'm trading my sickness, my pain for the joy of the Lord. I'm thinking about Sarah Minifield. That was one of her favorite songs, one of the founders of today's church. And the idea of the song is singing the scripture that you must engage in a trade. You must engage in releasing one thing in order to receive something else. That many times we do not receive the double portion, our birthright, our abundance, because there's something in our hands occupying the space that abundance is supposed to hold in our lives. Shame. That there's something occupying the space of health in our life is sickness. And so in order to receive one thing, you've got to let go of something else. There must be a trade. There must be an exchange. You must release in order to be able to receive. And so in order for it to happen, in order for you to get the beauty, you got to let go of the ashes. But many of us are so attached to the ashes, so attached to the memories of the pain of what it is that we have lost, that we're not able to receive the beauty from the situation because we're holding on to the ashes. But if you desire the beauty, you got to let go of the ashes. It says the oil of joy for mourning. In order to get the oil of joy, you got to let go of the mourning. But we are so attached to suffering. We're so attached to settling. We're so attached to struggle that we don't desire to let it go. It's a part of our story. It's the story that we tell. It's how we identify ourselves. We're so used to playing the victim that we are holding on to the ashes and we never receive the beauty. But in order to receive the beauty, you got to let go of the ashes. In order to receive the oil of joy, you got to let go of the mourning. In order to receive the garment of praise, you got to let go of the heaviness. There must be an exchange. There must be a trade. There must be a letting go and a releasing of the past. Remember not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. I'm going to give you water in the wilderness. I'm going to bring forth springs in the desert. But there must be a releasing and a letting go. You can't have a new life and hold on to your old life. You cannot have the abundance and the health and the harmony in relationships that you desire holding on to those old thought patterns, those old speech patterns, those old ways of seeing things, those old way of being, those old ways of behaving or doing. You got to release and let something go. You must release in order to receive the double portion or the birthright that is yours by divine right, by divine heritage. It is yours. But why haven't I received it? Because there's something that you're not willing to let go of. There's something that you're not willing to release. So I'm encouraging you today. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a high five. Give me a heart if you're willing to release and let some stuff go so that you can experience the increase, the abundance, the overflow, and the more than enough. All right? So let's break this scripture down. Pulley point number 1. He says, in order to receive the double portion, you got to let go of the shame. Shame. Shame will stand in the way of you receiving the double portion, of you receiving the inheritance, the birthright, the heritage. So in order to get the double portion, you got to recognize what it is that you are ashamed of, and you got to release that. What are you ashamed of? Shame is a deeper version of guilt. Guilt is I feel bad about what I have done. Shame is I feel bad about who I am. What is it that you are ashamed of? What is the shame that you've been carrying around? What have you done? What have you said? Where have you been that you are ashamed? When you can forgive yourself and let go of that shame, then and only then can you receive the double portion. You cannot have the double portion and have shame at the same time. Can I say that again? You cannot receive your abundance and hold on to the shame. You got to let go of the shame, because the shame caused you to feel that you're not unworthy, you don't deserve it. That is because of shame, because you've not forgiven yourself for something that you have done, for some decision of your past. And so the shame is standing in the way of you receiving your double portion. So go in your life, go in your heart, whatever it is that you are ashamed of, whatever you feel bad about that's gotten into your personhood, where now you feel bad not just about what you've done, but about who you are, that you feel like there's something wrong with you. Release it and let it go in order to receive your double portion. It is contingent on you letting go of shame. You're not going to be walking around with a double portion and holding shame at the same time. You got to release and let go of shame. Give me a thumbs up, give me a heart, give me a high five if you are receiving God's grace, God's mercy, God's forgiveness, if you are giving that to yourself. Because in order to receive, and I'm in Isaiah 61:7, he says, instead of shame, you will receive a double portion. So you got to let go of the shame so you can receive. It's not that God doesn't desire to give it to you. You are unable to receive it because you're holding on to the shame. So pulley point number one, in order to receive the double portion, I got to let go of the shame. Pulley point number two, it says, instead of disgrace, that I will give you an inheritance. So shame is how I feel about what I have done. And I feel bad about who I am. That's me feeling it. But pulley point number two is you also got to let go of disgrace. Disgrace is how other people think and feel about me. He says the only way that you're going to receive the inheritance is you got to let go of the disgrace. That what the gossip that people have, your business being in the street, people talking about you, calling you everything but a child of God, the lies that they told on you, how your reputation was messed up, the rumors that went on about you. You got to release and let go of the disgrace if you're going to experience the inheritance. You cannot have disgrace and inheritance at the same time. That's what's blocking you from receiving the inheritance, is that you're still focused on what the people say. What the song say, no matter what the people say, I'm going to love you anyway. And that's what God is saying to you. It no matter what the people say, I'm going to love you anyway. I have an inheritance for you. And you must let go of the disgrace so that you can receive your inheritance. Let go of the dis-ease so that you can receive your inheritance. Your inheritance is healing, health, and wholeness. But as long as you hold on to those embarrassing situations, you will never receive your inheritance. As long as you hold on to those humiliating situations, you will never receive your inheritance. I release the disgrace so that I can receive my inheritance. I release the shame so that I can receive the double portion. We got some good work going on here today. Pulley point number one, I release and let go of the shame so that I can receive my double portion. Pulley point number two, I release and let go of the disgrace so that I can receive my inheritance. Give me a thumbs up, give me a high five, give me a heart if you're willing to let it go. I know that you've been a victim. I know that they did this to you, and I can't believe that they did that, and it was awful and horrible and terrible and all of that. But in order to receive your inheritance, you must release the disgrace so that you can receive your inheritance. Pulley point number three. He says that I got land for you, which means property. And I believe that this land, that this property, that God has abundance for you in tangible form. He said, I got land for you. But in order to receive the land, you got to let go of lack. Many of us are not receiving the businesses, the land, the property that God has for us because we're holding on to the lack mentality of not having enough, of not being enough. There is land for you. There is property for you. There are deeds with your name on it. There are opportunities for you to be able to buy land, to purchase property, physical, tangible, material wealth. But because of the idea of lack in your mind, you're not able to receive the land that God has for you. So I let go of lack so I can receive the land. Come on, do that denial work with me. I let go of lack so that I can receive the land, so that the land can continue to increase in its value, increase in its worth, so that it can appreciate instead of depreciating. But as long as you're holding on to lack, you will never receive the land. I release and let go of lack so that I can receive the properties, the land that God has for me. Pulley point number 1, I release and let go of shame so that I can receive my double portion. Pulley point number 2, I release and let go of disgrace so that I can receive my inheritance. Pulley point number 3, I release and let go of lack so that I can receive the land that God has for me. Pulley point number 4, he promised them everlasting joy. This verse just had me just shouting this morning. He promised them everlasting joy. But in order to receive that means joy unspeakable and full of glory. Joy that never runs out. Joy in spite of what the situation and the circumstance is. I've got joy flowing like a river. But in order to receive the everlasting joy, you got to let go of sorrow. You got to let go of the grief. Not just the loss, but the feelings associated with the loss. You can decide how long you're going to mourn. You can decide how long you're going to be in grief. You can decide how long you're going to be in sorrow. Give yourself that space, however long it is that you need, and know that once you're able to release and let go of the sorrow, then the everlasting joy. But you can't hold on to the sorrow and have the everlasting joy at the same time. And so I'm saying to you that it is up to you. Your prosperity is up to you. Your abundance is up to you. Your overflow is up to you. Your more than enough is up to you. But there must be a trade. He says, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest for your soul. But you got to let it go. He says in the scripture, cast all your cares upon me because I care for you. You've been carrying that shame, that disgrace, that lack, and that sorrow long enough. It's time to exchange and give it over to God. It's time to let go and let God. You have been telling that same sad story long enough, that victim mentality, what happened in 4th grade, 3rd grade. It's time to go to some therapy. It's time to do some journaling. It's time to talk to somebody and release it and let it go because it's standing in the way of you experiencing your double portion. I desire my double portion. And the shame is not more important to me than the double portion. I desire my inheritance, and the disgrace and being the victim is not more important than me having my inheritance. I desire the land that God promised me, and lack is not more important to me, and being a victim and not having and looking for a handout, that is not more important to me than the land that God promised me. He said, if you are willing and obedient, I will give you the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, if you hold on to that junk, that bitterness, that unforgiveness, what they said, what they did, that hurt, if you keep holding on to it, you will never receive your double portion. You will never receive your inheritance. You will never receive your land because there must be a trade. There must be an exchange. He says in the scriptures, I will perfect those things that concern you. Give it over to God. Release it and let it go. Forgive the person. It is not worth the sickness that is producing in your body. It is not worth the stress that it is producing in your mind. It is not worth the lack that you've been experiencing in your life. Release it and let it go. Let go of the sorrow so you can receive your everlasting joy. Let go of the lack so that you can receive your land. This is your time. This is your season for abundance. This is your time of harvest. And the only thing that's stopping it is that you're holding on to shame. You're holding on to disgrace. You're holding on to lack. And you're holding on to sorrow. So get to the bottom of it. Whatever you feel ashamed of, forgive yourself. Whenever you felt disgraced and humiliated, release it and let it go. Wherever you have felt like you lack, let it go. Wherever you've experienced sorrow and grief, release it so that you can receive all the good that God has for you.